Before we get into my Miami Dolphins 53-man roster projection before training camp, I want to get the word of Dolphins Today out there, and I need your help by sharing today's video. Click the share button, select the Twitter/X icon, and click post to Twitter/X. Also, I think this is a great video to share to your family, friends, colleagues, whoever you want to, because as we approach training camp, we often need to know who's on the roster bubble and who's not. So spread the word here and show people my roster projection. All right, welcome back into Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. Today's show is that 53-man roster projection. I am Nick Roloff. I think it's important to note that Miami Dolphins training camp is very close to being underway. July 16th is when rookies report. July 23rd is when the veterans report. So we are just about 2 weeks away from really getting real football back into our system. And we're about a month away from the first preseason game as well when the Dolphins take on the Atlanta Falcons on August 9th. It's going to be freaking awesome, man. So let's get right into it with the Dolphins roster projection. And I have the Dolphins keeping 3 quarterbacks. I originally have been saying that Mike White could be a cut candidate as he would save the Dolphins about $3 million in cap space. But after some roster maneuvering, I don't think that they actually need the $3 million in cap space anymore. They currently have 16, at least as currently filming. So 2 is going to be your QB1. I think they keep both Mike White and Skylar Thompson. And UDFA Gavin Hardison, I believe, is going to be on the practice squad. So he ends up getting cut, but I think he could still be with this team on the P squad. I'm a little bit bullish on his upside. I'm excited to see him perform in training camp and in the preseason. We'll keep 6, I guess 5/1 fullback here, running backs. 4 through 9, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. 4th round rookie Jaylen Wright. I'm keeping Salvon Ahmed and Chris Brooks for obviously depth as well as special teams value. And then Alec Ingold, one of the best fullbacks in the entire NFL. He is going to be kept on this roster, of course. So he rounds out my 6 running backs. And to me, I think Jeff Wilson is just a lock to be cut, man. I don't think he provides you with that much value going forward. And with the rest of these running backs, I don't think it's worth keeping Jeff Wilson. You could save about $1.82 million in cap, so I'm a fan of cutting Jeff Wilson. But let me know, will Jeff Wilson be cut or traded by the Miami Dolphins? Unlikely that he gets traded because a team probably will realize he's going to get cut and they won't trade for him. But let me know, type Y for yes or type N for no. I'm keeping 6 wide receivers here on the Dolphins roster, and I think 5 of them are a lock. I do. I'm going Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, OBJ, Malik Washington, and Braxton Berrios. Those are my top 5 locks. The rookie out of Virginia, I think, is going to be a stud. Braxton Berrios provides you with so much special teams value, especially with the new kickoff return rules, where he's going to play a massive factor. And then the 6th wide receiver, Miami usually keeps 6. I know it's going to be a battle between Taj Washington, River Craycraft, and Eric Ezukama. I'm going to go Craycraft because he's the biggest wide receiver out of them all. And one thing with the other 5 on this team is like they don't really have any size. OBJ is the biggest one out of all of them at 5'11". So they're going to need some bigger wide receivers alongside the smaller guys that share a lot of speed, which is why I go River Craycraft. Now, I do hope that they end up keeping a lot of them on the practice squad. Taj Washington, Eric Ezukama, and sneaky Jaquan Burton, who is in UDFA out of, FAU. I don't know why I almost said Florida State. FAU for Jaquan Burton. I hope they're able to keep the 3 of them on the practice squad. I'm fine cutting Braylon Sanders and Anthony Schwartz. Those 2 are non-starters for me. But I'd like to keep Taj Washington, Ezukama, and Jaquan Burton on the practice squad. I'm keeping 3 tight ends. Jonnu Smith is your clear-cut wide receiver 1. Jody Fortson Jr. has just had such a terrific offseason thus far, signing a 1-year deal with Miami. He has dominated in both mandatory minicamp and OTAs. He has moved up to my number 2 tight end. And you can argue Julian Hill or Durham Smythe for tight end 3. I'll go with Smythe since he has more experience on the Miami Dolphins. So those are your 3 wide receivers in my roster projection, with Hill, Connor, and Hayden Rucci being cut and the Dolphins. A lot of offensive linemen here. I'm keeping 10 because, well, you just have so much uncertainty at right guard where you're going to need to keep a lot of guys to potentially put in there. But I also think you're going to have to keep some offensive tackles because Armstead is not the most healthy guy in his entire career. So you're obviously keeping Armstead, Austin Jackson, your 2 starting tackles, Patrick Paul, your 55th overall pick. Kendall Lamb is your more experienced swing tackle. Aaron Brewer, your starting center. Isaiah Wynn, your starting left guard. And then the last 4, Robert Jones is probably your starting right guard, at least as of now. Liam Eichenberg is competing for that role. So is Jack Driscoll and Lester Cotton. I think you're going to need a lot of bodies because you don't know what's going to happen at right guard. Isaiah Wynn and Teron Armstead have injury history. So I expect the Dolphins to carry a lot of offensive linemen on their initial 53-man roster, which is why I think these 10 make a lot of sense. That's the entire offense, at least on my 53-man roster projection. Rate the Dolphins' offense for me. We have asked this question before, and I want to ask it again. I rated it at 8.3. This offense is really, really good. It would be closer to a 9 if it had a starting right guard, but 8.3, one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. Let's move over to the Dolphins' defensive line now, where Zach Sealer is going to headline this group alongside the newly signed Calais Campbell, the most recent addition to this Dolphins roster. And then this is where I get a little bit crazy here. I think the 2 interior defensive linemen that end up staying on this team are Novell Gallimore and Benito Jones. I think Tier Tart, who Miami signed, who's been battling injury and did not really do well during minicamp and OTAs, could end up being a cut candidate, as well as Brandon Pillai and Isaiah Mack as well. I think these 4 are going to be the 4 interior defensive linemen you end up keeping. Moving on to the linebackers here. 5 edges, 4 linebackers. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Shaq Barrett, Chop Robinson, and Mohamed Kamara. I think obviously the first 4 are locks, with Chop being a first-round pick, your top 2 guys, and Shaq Barrett coming over in free agency. I think Mo Kamara, even though he was a 5th-round pick, and that doesn't guarantee you anything in this day and age, I think he's going to absolutely ball out in training camp and preseason. I'd expect him to be a 1,000% lock for this roster. And then linebackers, I'm keeping 4. Like David Long Jr., Jordan Brooks, and Anthony Walker Jr., your top 3. We've talked about it. Long does it all. Brooks is your run stopper, and Walker's your coverage guy. I think Duke Riley ends up beating out Channing Tindall, the former 3rd-round pick out of Georgia, for that 4th linebacker spot. Riley's a little bit better on special teams as well. Tindall, a disappointing top 110 pick selection from a couple drafts ago, is going to end up getting cut from this roster, at least as things currently stand. The cornerback room, pretty simple. Top 5 guys. I think they keep 5. They're going to hope that they can stay healthy for most of the year. Jalen Ramsey and Kendall Fuller are your 2 boundary corners. Kader Kohu is your nickel. Nick Needham could play as your nickel backup to Kader Kohu, as well as playing outside. And then 2nd-round pick from a year ago, Cam Smith out of South Carolina, is going to be asked to have a big role this year as that lead backup boundary corner potentially in case the injury goes down. I think these 5 guys make a lot of sense for Miami to keep. Final 4, at least on the defensive end here, Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer, Marcus May, and Elijah Campbell. You signed May a month ago to be your 3rd safety to Poyer and Javon Holland. And I think Elijah Campbell is going to make this roster as well, just because he provides a lot of special teams value in punt coverage as well as kick returns. He also has experience on this team as a 4th safety and 3rd safety. To me, it makes a lot of sense with an experienced Jordan Poyer, who's a little bit older, and Marcus May, who has injury history, to keep 4 safeties. So Elijah Campbell will be that guy in my eyes. And then the no doubters here, the final 3 players on this roster, the special teamers. Jason Sanders is going to be your kicker. Jake Bailey's your punter. And Blake Ferguson is your long snapper. I think there's no surprise here. And they round out my 53-man roster projection. All right, that's going to do it for the 53-man roster projection. Name a player I left off the 53-man roster. I mean, there's a lot of names that I had to put into consideration here. You can go to a Saran Neal, who signed from Buffalo, but I ultimately had him getting cut. You can go Channing Tindall. You can go maybe to Jeff Wilson. Maybe even Gavin Hardison could be a name you can drop. But name a player that I have off my 53-man roster. All right, make sure you do share this video as well. If you made it to the end of the show, we're obviously doing something right. So why wouldn't you want to share this to other Dolphins fans out there who maybe need a little freshen up on who is on this Miami Dolphins roster. So do me a favor by also helping yourself out by creating a larger community here at Dolphins Today by sharing today's show.